After 5 years since the end of the Commander Shepard trilogy, Bioware gives us the newest addition to the Mass Effect franchise in Mass Effect Andromeda. With an entire new galaxy and characters to play with and explore, how does Andromeda fare without Shepard and his colorful companions? As I already stated, Andromeda is a new start for the Mass Effect series, giving us a new galaxy, well, sort of, to explore. The game does kind of lie to you and only gives you a cluster of Andromeda to explore. It's still a large galaxy to explore with a lot of side quests throughout the entire galaxy to keep you busy. But the number of planets that you can fully explore lacks in comparison to the previous Mass Effects. These planets can also become somewhat of a bore to explore since some of the variety of planets are just redone, like desert planets. The game's story is actually decent and gives you enough mystery and intrigue to keep you invested the whole way. The game has you in the shoes of a new protagonist called Scott or Sarah Ryder, depending on your gender. While Ryder isn't as good as a protagonist as Shepard is, Ryder still does a good job, and I applaud with Bioware's idea of having the other gender Ryder still be an important part of Andromeda's story. The companions are also decent, however, there's no amazing standout characters like Garrus or Legion from the trilogy to go head over heels for. While some of the characters are very well written, PB and Jaw are examples, the human companions that you're given lack any interesting characteristics, and some of the other small characters, whether on the Tempest ship or the Citadel like Nexus, also seem bland. So while Andromeda doesn't really match the previous game in terms of excellence and story characters, it does give some memorable moments worthy of the Mass Effect series. For me, Mass Effect 3's multiplayer mode was one of my favorite things about the game. I ended up spending most of my time in 2012 playing Mass Effect 3 multiplayer with my friends. I can say that while they improved on some things in Andromeda multiplayer, there are some things I disagree with. Andromeda keeps very closely to 3's multiplayer, but instead of 10 waves like before, they've shortened it to 7, a decision I actually support. This is mostly because unlike 3, where there were a lot of interesting classes that I could play with and could fit well into composition, Andromeda's multiplayer characters are lacking in any interest. Not one character stands out, and most of the characters have the same abilities and skills. This is a slight disappointment, as I felt 3 had so much variety in their characters, and it's just kind of sad going to Andromeda and seeing kind of a lack of variety in characters. Despite that, multiplayer in Mass Effect Andromeda still remains a blast to play with friends. Andromeda's combat system is the series' best. The gunplay is so slick and quick with the new jetpack, making me gladly saying goodbye to the combat rules of the last game. The removal of pressing a button to get into cover is a mechanic I've also warmed up over time. It's so quick to get in and out of cover compared to the past 2 games, of course ignoring the first Mass Effect as it had the same system as Andromeda. The new way of learning and using abilities is also something Bioware has done exceptionally well in adding to the new combat system. Instead of choosing a class and being stuck with a certain number of abilities, all the abilities across all types are available to the player. This gives us a greater amount of room to explore certain combos or just have abilities that work for the player's playstyle. For exploration around the planets, the player is also given the Nomad, a beefed up version of the first Mass Effect's Mako. I enjoy using the Nomad, it's just the lack of planet variety that makes it sometimes boring to use, but that's not the gameplay's fault. In fact, the gameplay in Andromeda is stellar and probably the best in the series. Okay, here's where the game has been heavily criticized. In truth, while some of the criticism is well earned, it's not as bad as what others are saying it is. The graphics and lighting are quite gorgeous on a lot of the planets and places you explore in the game. It's also quite impressive how quick the loading screens are in a game this size. However, traveling between systems and planets can be quite annoying to do so as you are stuck with an uninterruptible cutscene. The sound design is good and the voice acting is acceptable, however, props to Christine Lakin for her performance as PB in the game. Where the game falters are in its animations, which can be odd. Some characters show no facial emotion whatsoever, and lip movement can be also a bit bland. I'm okay with this stuff like this, as I'm a kind of person who doesn't really get annoyed by it, but I can see how it can bother people, and that is a problem for Mass Effect Andromeda. So yeah, sadly, Andromeda may not be on par with the games from the Mass Effect trilogy. However, it's still good enough to hang with them. The story is good, keeping me invested the whole time I played it. Some of the characters are great, and the combat system is a fantastic improvement from the previous games. Mass Effect Andromeda may be a slight disappointment in some areas and overall compared to the other games, but it's still a fun and large RPG.